Hi everybody, and welcome to Everyday Manna. Today we are going to be making a chili bacon wrapped chicken tender. We're going to do some roasted green beans and some mac and cheese using cauliflower instead of macaroni. So let's get started. Now I have my oven preheated to 375 degrees, and I'm going to get everything prepped up here first. I have some I'm using brown sugar substitute here, but if you don't eat low carb, you could use regular brown sugar. I'm going to mix some salt and some pepper, and for a little bit of heat, we're going to put some cayenne pepper in that, and I'm going to stir that all together. Get that mixture good and combined. If you don't want the heat, you can leave out the cayenne, but I kind of like a little bit of a cayenne or a chili powder. Either one is fine. Whatever you like works. All right, now I have here just some regular bacon that I've cut in half, and I have here, I just bought boneless, skinless chicken breasts because they were on sale, and I just cut them into pieces. But if you have chicken tenders, it works beautifully. And then I have a lined baking sheet that I've put a baking rack on, and I've sprayed this with non-stick cooking spray. Now, what you want to do is take a piece of chicken. Now, let me get the bacon separated here so I don't touch what I'm not going to use. And you're just going to wrap a half a piece of bacon around each tender and then put it on the baking sheet. Feel free to use turkey bacon if you want to, or pancetta would be delicious. If you have a longer tender like this one is, you can use 2 pieces, it's fine. You can put as much as you want to on yours. I love bacon. Anything with bacon on it is yummy. So the longer ones I'm having to use what would be 1 piece. Now this whole meal is a low carbohydrate meal, but it's delicious. You know, you don't have to be eating low carb to eat this food. It's just delicious food altogether. But in all the years that I've done Everyday Manna, the #1 request that I get is for a lower carb diet. So really have been working very hard on developing recipes for that, and I eat low carb, so it's just kind of a win-win there. I'm not a dietitian, so I do not give out any kind of a nutritional information. This is just for you to base your eating style on. I want to show you that just because you're eating low carbohydrate doesn't mean it can't be delicious, because it most certainly can be and is. So this is just, you just wrapping the bacon around the chicken tenders, and it's not only going to add flavor, but that bacon fat will render and will add a lot of moisture to the chicken, because chicken breasts especially can be very lean. They are very lean. So, sometimes they tend to dry out if you don't add something in there to add some moisture to it. So that's one of the purposes of the bacon, as well as just flavor, because again, honestly, everything tastes better when it's got bacon on it, doesn't it? So we're just going to wrap these chicken tenders with the bacon. All right. Alrighty, now we've got all of our chicken wrapped in the bacon and nestled on a baking sheet. And the mixture that we started making in the beginning, that would be the brown sugar, the cayenne or chili powder, salt and pepper. We are just going to sprinkle that liberally over the chicken. And what's going to happen is that's not only going to flavor, it's going to caramelize and just be delicious. And this is why we put the foil on the baking sheet, because this would be a mess to clean up. But when you line your sheet, it's so much easier. You just have to peel that off and throw it away. I love foil lined, and I personally like the non-stick cooking spray, or non-stick foil, aluminum foil. And I'm making a mess here. Just gonna sprinkle all of this, making sure that all my chicken gets some of the brown sugar mixture. We're gonna pop these in a 375-degree oven for about 30 minutes. So let's get these in the oven here. Alrighty, for 30 minutes, and then they'll be done. You know, you could turn the broiler on for a minute or two if you need to. All right, now for another quick little side dish, I love green beans. And one of the things that you can make with green beans is just a pan-roasted green bean. You know, there's just 1,000 different ways to cook them, and I love them all those different ways. But what I like to do is take the thinner green beans, and these have been topped and tailed, as they say, and I just broke them in half because I like that littler piece. You can leave them whole if you want to. If you have the thin haricots verts, which are the French green beans, you can use those. These are just regular snap beans. You would not want to use a bean that you need to cook, like a half runner type thing that you need to cook a little longer, because that won't work. They don't get tender enough. This is just some garlic powder and some onion powder and some salt and pepper. Couldn't be easier. Mix all that together. Spread them out. And they're gonna go in a like a 450-degree oven or under the broiler. Now, if you don't, now I have 2 ovens here, but if you don't have 2 ovens, I mean, they cook so fast, you could wait and just, when your chicken's done or the last couple of minutes, crank the heat up on the chicken that's just gonna get more caramelized, and then put your beans on there, because they really only take about 5 to 10 minutes at the most. They're gonna get caramelized and crispy, and they're gonna have little brown spots on them. They're delicious, and I absolutely love roasted green beans, but they couldn't be simpler. And these days you can find in the produce department of your grocery store, you can find the green beans that are already cleaned and topped and tailed, ready to go. Sometimes they're even, you know, in a bag that you can steam in, whatever you want to do. So these are just going to go in a very hot oven for about 5 or 6 minutes, and then we'll check them, stirring every couple of minutes to make sure that they're done. I'm gonna clean up my mess here, and when I come back, we're gonna get started on a cauliflower and a wonderful little, like a jalapeno type muffin. I'll be back in just a minute. Alrighty, now our chicken tenders are in the oven. All I've done is I'm getting one thing prepped up, and I had a head of cauliflower, and I just basically cut it into florets, and I put it in the microwave for 9 minutes to steam. So we've got that going, but that's coming up in a minute. Now we want to make a pepper jack almond muffin. So in this bowl, I have just 1 cup of almond flour. I've got some baking powder and some salt that I'm gonna whisk together here. As I find a whisk. There we go. Just get that together and set it to the side. And then in another bowl, you wanna have 2 eggs. Crack them in separate bowls, because that's what my mama said you have to do. I've got some heavy cream, some vanilla flavoring extract, and some butter extract. Get all that heavy cream out of there. And whisk that all together. Okay, oh, that smells so good. Forgot to add I'm using a sugar substitute. If you want to use regular sugar, go ahead. I'm eating low carb, so we're working on some low carb recipes. I'm just going to stir that in. Now here my microwave's done. I'm going to combine my wet ingredients with the dry. I'm going to stir that together. Okay. And I have a muffin tin here that I've sprayed with non-stick cooking spray, the baking kind. And then I have here just some a block of pepper jack cheese that I shredded myself. Sometimes if you use the pre-shredded cheeses, you need to remember those are coated with a cellulose. And, you know, sometimes that can interfere with your recipe. So if it's at all possible to shred your own, I would. Okay? That's all there is to it. We're going to I like to just use a little scoop because it makes them even. And I'm going to just drop it into our muffin tin. These bake at 375 degrees, which is the same as our chicken tenders. My microwave is talking to me. It's saying, don't forget, you've got some cauliflower in here. This makes 6 muffins. I don't have a 6 muffin tin, so I had to use the 12, and I'm only going to use half of them. Okay. These bake at 375 degrees for about 20 minutes. So let's pop them in with our chicken, which is looking really good. All right. And that's 20 minutes. I'm just going to grab my cauliflower. Take it out of the microwave and set it to the side for just a second. We're going to make a macaroni and cheese type recipe, but we're not using macaroni. We are going to be using our cauliflower. Let me wipe my board off here. So we need to get started with our bechamel sauce or a white sauce. You want to saute an onion in some non-stick, I like a non-stick pan, or this is actually a hard anodized, but that makes it non-stick. I'm going to mince up just a small onion because I do want to flavor this up, because as you know, cauliflower is really neutral in its flavor, so it can take on the flavor of anything that you want, really. So I'm just going to peel my onion. This peel doesn't want to come off very well. This is a small Vidalia onion because that's what I had, but you could use a little yellow onion, a white onion, whatever you have at your house is fine. I'm going to add just a little bit of olive oil to my pan, maybe a teaspoon, and then a couple of tablespoons of butter that I want to melt. The olive oil will increase the cooking temperature of the butter so that it doesn't burn. Okay, we're going to mince our onion. Kind of fine. We're going to saute this because I want it to be very, very soft. Check on our chicken tenders in a minute too. Okay. All right. Let's get our butter melting. Okay. Get that going. Okay, there we go. All right, now We're gonna get our onion in there. We're gonna saute our onion until it's nice and soft. This will not only add some flavor to it, but some different textures, and it's really good. Now, with your cauliflower, you can steam it in a pot or boil it in a pot and drain it, but honestly, I find it so much easier just to steam it in the microwave. I put it in a microwavable safe dish with about a teaspoon or so of water, and I just steam it, and it cooks it until it's tender, and you can proceed on with your recipe. It's just so much easier than bringing a pot of water to a boil and then boiling it. It's just simpler to steam it in the microwave. So I'm gonna take a quick break. I'm just gonna get this sauteing until it's tender. I'm gonna check on those chicken tenders. When I come back, we're gonna make the sauce for the macaroni and cheese. I keep wanting to say macaroni and cheese. It's the cauliflower and cheese. We're gonna check on our chicken. Our muffins are probably gonna be done in just a couple minutes, and our green beans are already out of the oven. I'll be back in just a minute, and we will finish up our macaroni and cheese. I'll be back in just a minute. Alrighty, now our onion has sauteed. I'm gonna add just a little bit more butter. We're gonna melt that in there, and we're going to make the sauce for the macaroni and cheese. Now you could make this very same sauce and substitute cooked elbow macaroni if you wanted to. I've got some heavy cream that I'm gonna add. It adds richness and flavor. Now, we're not going to be thickening this with flour like you would the traditional roux. We're just going to count on the heavy cream to reduce and thicken a little bit to coat our macaroni and cheese. So I'm gonna let that start doing its thing. I'm gonna add a little bit of thyme, a little bit of cayenne pepper, just a pinch, and some salt and some pepper. We're gonna stir that together. We're gonna let that come up to a simmer, that butter to finish melting. You could add some garlic to this too if you wanted to. Let that come up to a simmer, and what's gonna happen is what water that is in the heavy cream and the butter is going to boil away in the form of steam, and it's gonna thicken and reduce a little bit. I want it to reduce by about a third, somewhere in there. And it will become nice and thick to where you can coat the back of a spoon. Just stir it, because remember, you do have dairy in there, and you don't want it to burn. And it just happens in a minute or so. It doesn't take it long to get done. And then we're gonna add some shredded cheddar cheese. You can use yellow cheddar or you can use white cheddar. Either one is fine. The cheese, as it melts, will also help to thicken up the cauliflower, or the sauce for the cauliflower. And that's a good, very low carb, delicious, whether you're low carb or not, sauce for some awesome steamed cauliflower. Just put your head of cauliflower that you've steamed in there. Stir that all together, and that's done. That comes together in a matter of minutes. If you wanted to, you could take this mixture and put it in a baking pan, sprinkle it with whatever you wanted. If you wanted to use breadcrumbs, you could use breadcrumbs. If you wanted to use some crushed up pork rinds, if you are eating low carb, you could use the crushed up pork rinds and pop it in the oven for a minute to let that get good and crispy and crunchy. It would be delicious. That's an easy, easy recipe for a delicious cheesy cauliflower and cheese recipe. And you could, if you wanted to substitute the elbow macaroni cooked, you could, or you could substitute the, maybe some cavatappi, the curly, something with a ridges or a hole like rigatoni or penne or something, so that you can, the sauce can get in there. But it's perfect with cauliflower because of all the little nooks and crannies in the cauliflower. It just is delicious. So there you go. There's an easy, easy recipe for a cheesy cauliflower. I'll be back in just a minute. Alrighty, now everything is cooked. These are our bacon wrapped chicken tenders. Now you will want to turn them over and run them under the broiler for about 5 minutes so that the underside bacon can get good and crisp. To the degree that you like it, just turn them over and put it under the broiler. I did turn the top side up under the broiler for like 5 minutes too, and that just crisps everything up. And they're really good. I love these. So you can just put them on your serving plate. Here is our delicious cauliflower and cheese, just staying nice and warm on our stove. Serve that up. Again, if you wanted to put that in the baking dish and top it with the crispy topping of your choice, and run it under the oven to stay, to get the crispy topping, either with breadcrumbs, panko breadcrumbs, or like crushed up pork rinds, and just sprinkle over after you put it in a baking pan. That would be delicious, and you can do it that way, or you can just leave it creamy. Myself, I know, you know, a lot of people like their macaroni and cheese baked with that crisp topping. Me, I like mine that creamy consistency. So it's the same thing with my cauliflower and cheese. I prefer the creamy, but if you're in the other camp, just put that whole finished dish in a baking dish, top it with the crumb of your choice, maybe drizzle a little bit of melted butter or olive oil to help it crisp up. Put it in the oven for 10 minutes at 425 or under the broiler for like 3 or 4 minutes to get it crisp up. It will be delicious. Our green beans, I have a confession I've been snacking on. They just roast up and they get that little itty bitty, little brown bits, which is that caramelization that comes from the green beans. It's so, so, so good. Yummy. I love green beans cooked that way. And here are our pepper jack muffins. Now, here's a little hint for you. If you are cooking low carb, whatever, you know, however you want to eat, and you're using a sugar substitute in a baked dish like this, it is best to use like a sweetener called erythritol or something along those lines. If you use your Swerve or Splenda or Stevia, the really, really sweet, you want to make sure that you don't use 1/4 of a cup, use like half that amount because it will be too sweet. So make sure that if you're using, you know, the typical sweeteners that we put in our coffee or things like that, that you cut that down by 1/2. But if you're using erythritol or like the monk fruit sweetener that's not quite as sweet. Those sweeteners, and we did a program on this before, you can substitute part for part for regular sugar. But the really sweet ones, the Splenda that comes in the yellow packets, or the whatever it is in the blue and the pink, I think it is, or the new one, the Swerve or Stevia, just cut it down by half at least, because those are super, super sweet type sweeteners. So there is a quick and easy, delicious meal that you can make start to finish in your home and have it on the table in under an hour if you're you know, just cooking for your family. And they make great leftovers. The chicken tenders are great warm. They're also great room temperature. That would make a delicious meal to put in a lunchbox for the next day. If you know, a lot of times we plan that way when we do our meal planning. We think about our lunches the next day. And so this is a great leftover dish. This is a dish that kids are gonna love. I mean, it's chicken with bacon, and it's got a sweet topping there with the brown sugar. And I use brown sugar substitute. You can either use a little bit of chili powder or cayenne pepper. If you wanted to, you could take some barbecue sauce, either regular barbecue sauce or sugar-free barbecue sauce, depending on what you like, and brush over top of those and put them back under the broiler for just a couple minutes, and you would have an even more caramelized, delicious chicken tender. And we cannot, of course, forget our wonderful cauliflower and cheese that we use, cheddar cheese. But you could use really any kind of cheese that you wanted. I use cheddar, but if you wanted to use pepper jack or Colby or even mozzarella or provolone